All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to another rendition of our SIG Docs weekly meeting. My name is Taylor Dolezal, and I'm filling in for Jim, who has a very crazy schedule. So very happy to see all of your happy faces. This is a Kubernetes meeting, and so we abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which simplifies down to please be excellent to one another. I make that same request of all of you. And we shouldn't have too much of an issue on that front. So without any further ado, are there any new contributors with us, or is there anyone that wants to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Nate. Awesome. Cool. If you do want to make a shout out or anything like that, please feel free to do so as we continue through the schedule. Otherwise, I'll keep on keeping on. Some updates, reminders this week. This week's PR Wrangler is Celeste. I know she'd shouted that out on Slack. I think it was yesterday. So if you have any questions or need to work with her on anything on that front, please do so. Next week's PR Wrangler is Steve Perry. In our document, we have the PR Wrangler shifts, so please feel free to check that out. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise those. Any questions on the PR Wrangler front? Fantastic. Kicking things off with our agenda, the 121 release. Divya said that I think Divya said that she had posted some items into the schedule and that she wasn't going to be able to make it. And those are upcoming release blog review deadline is March 25th. They need to be published on April 8th. The target date for 121. Release logo and the associated blurb will be added by Navarone towards the end of the cycle. That being kind of like what the release mascot is going to be. So awesome, great update on that front. Divya also mentioned that 8 feature blogs are tracked so far. The tracker sheet is in the SIG, is in our weekly meeting schedule and in the agenda. That will be ready for review on March 31st. That is released in a staggered format post the end of the release cycle on April 8th. Any questions on that front? I've got a little bit of insight into SIG release, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on that front if there are any questions. Fantastic. I'd like to turn it. I see Ray in here. Oh, hey,
yep,
Ray.
I'm here.
Awesome. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, sounds good. Well, for the release for 121, today is the doc placeholder pull request deadline is today. For those who are not familiar with the release cycle, for any enhancements that's being tracked for the release for 121, and if they need new or modified or updated documentation, they have to make a placeholder pull request, at least a placeholder pull request to the Dev 121 branch in K website, and that deadline is today. The good news is that every enhancement owner has either notified or made their pull requests into the Dev 121 branch. We're just missing 3 PRs where the owners said that they will create a pull request by today. And that's pretty much it. The rest is pretty standard. The integration branch is healthy, and yeah, so we're in a good place. So status is green.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ray. Any questions for Ray?
Yeah, I just have one question. So if they don't make it by EOD today, do they have to file an exception? For example, the enhancements owners like they do right now?
As for docs, I think there have been times where we've had to do an exception for 1 or 2. I don't think, so there's not like a formal process like there are with the enhancements where you file for an exception. For docs, it's mostly just, there's always 1 or 2 that's always a little bit late, and sometimes 1 or 2 will come in late. So it's not really an exception, but I guess it would be an exception. But usually if it's only allowed in within within a day, usually, or 2 days tops after the PR deadline. So yes, it's not as formal as the enhancements exception, but yeah, we can grant exceptions, or there's also the ability as well, in case there is also the ability to be removed from the milestone as well for the enhancements. That's a technicality, but luckily we haven't done that in the release cycles I've been on. But yeah.
I saw you had your hand up, Tim.
So because we're not part of the release in terms of, none of the documentation is made into the release artifacts and so on, we can slide the docs in a little bit after the release. And so the sort of thing that I'd be willing reluctantly to do would be to accept some incomplete docs, the diagrams are wrong, there's a factual error, they're just not good enough to publish, except we go, okay, we ask the SIG that's responsible, so look, can we get a commitment from you to sort this out? Of course they'll say yes. And we don't have to delay the release because of the docs, that kind of thing. Is that clear to everyone? Any questions?
Zach.
I have a related question. Rey, when will the website repo freeze and thaw during the release process?
The day before April 8th, and should thaw the day of. I'll have to go back to the timeline just to verify. But I believe, I'm gonna go check the role handbook. I believe it's the day before we freeze, and then the day of. I'll talk to the SIG Docs chairs about thawing, and there's some process involved as well with the merge of the Dev 120 branch and the master branch on the day of.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rey. Any other questions about the release, or just questions for Rey in general? Favorite Spotify playlists, anything like that? Awesome. Okay. Looking at the agenda, we don't have any issues, PRs, or third-party or dual-source content. Is there anything that anyone wants to bring up on that front before we move into discussion? Fantastic. Okay. Moving into discussion, I'd love to turn it over to you, Urvi.
Yeah, so basically I just reached out to SIG CLI about our effort to merge the Kubernetes.io and the kubectl handbook. And I put the link to the Google Groups and Slack as well. So if you know or have any other context about this, please put your thoughts into those two links.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Urvi. Any questions for Urvi? Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And would love to turn it over to you, Anna, for the docs deadline discussion.
Hey everyone. So I actually saw this come up like a few days ago, but SIG Release is going to talk about the release timeline, and their suggestion is to move the doc placeholder deadline to match with the code freeze deadline. And I just wanted to bring it up because I think SIG Docs should make a comment about whether that's a good change or not. And also one thing that I wanted to mention is that for this release, we actually did the change to the docs placeholder deadline, which was today, which is like 2 weeks after code freeze. No, it's a week after code freeze, sorry. So before, in the last release, it was week before code freeze. So there is a difference between the deadline between last release and this release. And I think, I don't know if you remember, but last release, the day of the placeholder deadline, we started off with like a huge number of PRs that wasn't open, and we tracked them like throughout the night, throughout the day, and we had to ping so many people to get those placeholder PR created. But like for Rey, like for this release, I don't think it was too much, like there wasn't that much like pressure like to, or like, I don't know, what do you think, Rey? Like compared to
I
last
think there was
release?
less pressure this release because the deadline was after code freeze. And like in the morning, we had 4 that had not replied. And so versus last release, it was quite a bit more than 4. So before 10 a.m. Pacific time, all 4 already replied if they do or do not need docs. So it wasn't. So it wasn't. I guess it was just easier with the doc placeholder deadline after code freeze, because enhancement owners do get busy with trying to make sure their enhancement is being tracked for 121, whether if it's code related issues or KEP related things that they have to do. So it was a little bit easier.
Yeah, so I think having it after code freeze might be a really good thing to like have it permanently. But I also wanted to just like mention this discussion that's gonna happen in SIG release. And if you have any like feedback or something, any concerns, like you should, make a comment in that issue.
I do want to make a note on the docs rule handbook. I believe it actually does say that the docs placeholder PR deadline is after code freeze usually. But I think in 120, we had like Thanksgiving holiday and we had KubeCon and we had those hurdles that might have played into with the schedule.
I think that's good input too, and we can kind of add that visibility in that issue on that front. Would be nice not to have to do that on any holidays. You have something to say?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I haven't tracked developments in the in SIG release about the discussion to move to a cadence of 3 releases per year. Is that something that's still, where's that discussion?
So as I understand that, it's still ongoing. There hasn't been a firm decision yet.
Okay. I ask because I think a 3 release cadence per year would solve some of the difficulties of that 4th release per year. Because I think it ends up being sort of an exceptional case for everyone. But yeah, from a historical basis, it was always like pulling teeth to get people to open those placeholder PRs prior to code freeze. So that it seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to sync up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that would just create a lot better situation for just about everybody when it comes to our process. Is there any other commentary, or does anyone else want to add any points to that? Excellent. And with that, we are at the end of our meeting agenda. Is there anything that anyone else wants to bring up? Any help that you need this week or these upcoming weeks? Anything that anyone would want to shout out? All right, wonderful. And with that, I guess we can give you some time back. If you have any questions this week or in the upcoming weeks, feel free to raise them up in the SIG Docs Slack channel. I'm going to go ahead and handle this recording of this meeting. We'll get that up on YouTube and make sure everything's good on that front. And as always, such a pleasure to work with all of you, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Have a good one, everybody.
So good to see everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.